Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna,
I'm Leslie.
and today we are excited to bring you our famous deep dive into the new commander decks that are coming out for the Dominaria United set. We're pretty excited about these two commander decks, so stay tuned and watch this video. And the next video, we are going to dig into these, same as we usually do with our commander decks, where we tell you a little bit about what the deck is meant to do, um, how it fares against our little formula that we use, as well as if you stick around long enough, we'll tell you about some tweaks that we might have for this deck.
Mm.
So, without further ado, Leslie, tell us about this deck.
I would love to. So this deck is called Painbow, and it's basically multicolored good stuff. The nice thing about these two decks that are coming out with Dominaria United are really they are very much theme decks, and they're themes that we haven't really seen. Of course, the commanders that are put as suggestions for this deck are both new cards, and so nobody will have made these decks yet. So our first commander is actually a planeswalker. Most of the time, commander or planeswalkers can't be your commander unless they say, as this one does, you'll see on the screen. Jared Cartholion can be your
Mm.
commander at the very bottom there. So he's a planeswalker. He's of course five color, which if you're new to the magic world, a lot of people will call Wooburg. That's
Mm.
WUBRG, which just stands for the colors. So W is white, U is blue. The reason they use U is because B is black. So there's
Mm-hmm.
Wooburg explained in a nutshell. So our planeswalker commander, it allows you to +1 his abilities or his loyalty and create a 3/3 Kavu creature token with trample that is all colors.
Nice.
You can -3 him, choose up to 2 target creatures. For each of them, put a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the number of colors it is.
Mm.
So in most of the cards in this deck, you'll see that they are 5. So you'll just get 5/1/1 counters right off the bat, which will be great. And then -6, you can return target multicolored creature from your graveyard to your hand. If that card is all colors, draw a card and create 2 treasure
Woo.
tokens as well. So you get a
Wowzers.
little bit of ramp. And really, you can do that on the second turn he's out if you want to, because you could +1 him and then minus him and
Yeah.
get something back.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to do that because you don't want your commander to get out of off the
Protect.
battlefield. But
No.
so the other one that they have as a suggestion in this deck, which we'll talk about later in again in high impact cards, is Jensen Cartholion Druid Exile, and he's only a green white commander up at or sorry green white color identity up at the top, but you'll notice down at the bottom he has 5 tap to add Wooburg, and because he has those colored pips on his in his text, that means he is able to be used as all color identity. So when you're talking about commander, you can only have the colors that are in the color identity, and really as long as that pip is somewhere on the card, the white, blue, black, green, and red, then you can use all of those colors in this deck. He's a 2/2, and when you cast a multicolored spell, you get to scry 1, so that's nice for continual looking at your cards. If that spell is all colors, which more than likely it's going to be, you get to create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So if flying and vigilance is your thing, then you might want to use this one as your commander. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I probably would, if it was me, I would switch it out. No problem. I think, Shauna, you're probably more the other guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. So that's the breakdown of this kind of deck and the overall what it's going to do. But let's look at the guts of this deck. Shauna, tell us about the mana curve and colors and things like that.
Okay, so this deck is very much about the multicolor spells, obviously. So, but as far as the mana curve goes, we've got 2 sitting at 0 or 1 cost, 15 at 2, 3, or sorry, at 3 we have 16. We have 9 at 4, 13 at 5, and 6 at 6 and up. So
Of
the
course.
13 at 5 is probably a lot of the Wooburg, right? Because
Yeah.
that's 5 there. So, like our commander. So, that's you're going to see lots there. So, it's a kind of a strange little curve, but lots of high end stuff. But you have to be high end to get all those colors in because that's 5 by itself. Then we look at the color breakdown. We've got 38 multicolored cards. So there you go. That shows you that. And then we have 7 colorless, probably your artifacts and stuff. 2 white, probably 1 blue there, and 10 green, and 2 red, and 1 black. So not very many of the other ones. A little bit more of the green. But then as far as the card types go, we have our Planeswalker Commander, of course. And we have 26 creatures, 24 instances and sorceries, so that's interesting. 4 enchantments and 6 artifacts, and like the Planeswalker I already said. So yeah, we
Well,
also
it's
have
interesting when you look at the colors, just going back to the colors there too, the green and why are there 10 green and the other ones are just like one of, it's because of the ramp.
Right.
It's all
Makes
green.
Sense. Makes sense. All right. So Leslie's going to tell us a little bit about this formula that we follow when we are evaluating decks, and when we're building decks, we use it as well. So I will let Leslie tell you about that.
Sure. This is just a fun little formula that we use to kind of compare commander decks when they come out and see where they sit. This will get you kind of a mid-range deck, this formula. It is, of course, a formula, not the only formula that's out there, but we like to use it. So commander, of course, you'll have 1 commander. We think you should have about 15 ramp cards in your deck, 15 removal cards, 13 that will draw you some cards or let you look at cards, so scrying and things like that. You want about 12 that are really high impact, and then 10 that will support your high impact cards or support the overall theme of the deck. We recommend around 34 to 36 lands, and of course, all of these can fluctuate within 3 to 4 of that number. So that just gives you kind of your things to think about when you're building a commander deck, that you should have some ramp and removal and card draw, because a lot of times you just say, oh, I'm going to build angels, and you just put all angels in there and you forget that you need to ramp up to them. So
to get there.
So we're going to break this deck down based on those kind of numbers, and our first category is ramp. It's a big category.
Yeah, there's that. The formula calls for that 15, and there are 20. So we were just discussing that there is quite a few ramp cards in here that will hopefully help you get to your 5 color things here. But we'll think about maybe we don't need that quite so many. Our first card is Abundant Growth. It is a little enchantment aura that you put on the land that says when it enters battlefield, you get to draw a card as well. Plus, you get to, that land becomes any color, which is really good in this deck, obviously.
Yeah, and then we have a number of what they call mana rocks in this deck. We'll maybe go through them a couple at a time. So Prophetic Prism and Commander Sphere are our first 2. When Prophetic Prism enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So it actually sits in the card draw category as well, but you can pay 1 and tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So this would be more of a mana fixing. Don't just get to tap it for mana, but you get to tap it for that mana in the color that you need. So you can essentially turn a green into a blue if you have more green on your battlefield or something like that. And then Commander Sphere adds 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, which will be any color at all, and you can sacrifice it to draw a card. So again, it sits in both categories, but it fixes your mana and gets you that color that you need when you need it.
And another little handy tool is the Felwar Stone, which is a 2 cost mana rock as well, but it taps for colors that your opponents control. So that may or may not help you depending on the time. And then as well, we have the Coalition Relic, which is tapping for any color as well. And you can put a charge counter on this thing. And at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all charge counters from the relic and add 1 mana of any color for each charge counter removed this way. So if it sticks around, you get a little bit of a boost there.
Interesting. So that one says, I just had a question about that one. It says, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all charge counters from Coalition Relic. But it doesn't say you may
Oh,
remove all
yeah. So
charge
I guess.
counters. So you have to do that. But
Da-da.
it doesn't seem right. We'll
Yeah.
get back to you. We'll put it in the
Yeah.
comments
Huh.
because it should say you may do that. Otherwise, you just don't get to build it up. Arcane
Hmm.
Signet is also a nice little mana rock there. Add one
So
mana
it's a
of
pretty
any
version.
color in your commander's color identity. This one is in both decks, so that's nice.
Nice. Yes, love our arcane signets. Then we have the growth spiral, which is the wonderful, partially banned, has been banned in times card. It's a green and a blue little instant that lets you draw a card, and you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Very
Mm.
handy.
So a lot of card draw in this deck too, which is fantastic. We love to see card draw.
Mm-hmm.
Searching for Tomorrow. This is kind of one of the first of our go search for land. Remember we
Yeah,
talked about those
yeah.
that green chunk of things. It's all to go get you more land. And of course, when you're doing a 5-color commander, you want to be able to get enough land to play your stuff. Otherwise, you'll never get there. So you're going to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This one has the fun little ability that you can suspend it as well. So rather than casting this card from your hand for the 3, you can pay 1 and then you put it 2 charge counters on it. And every upkeep, you get to remove a charge counter. And when there's no charge counters, then it casts. So it's a way to kind of get it out on the battlefield when you only have 1 mana, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can potentially go search for more than 1 land on that third turn because you're going to cast something as well as
Right.
this one goes off.
Yeah. And then we've got Migration Path and Kodama's Reach. These are two fairly standard mana searching cards. One, Migration Path, is a sorcery that lets you search for up to 2 basics and put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Or you can cycle it, which may come in handy. Cycling is when you can draw a card by discarding this one. And Kodama's Reach is a sorcery as well. And that's another one, searching your library for up to 2 basic cards, reveal them, put one on the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand. But that one is for 1 less mana. So you get to have that a little sooner. So they're both
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Yeah, and Farseek and Explosive Vegetation are our next
Mm-hmm.
two. Farseek is for 2. It's a sorcery. You can go search for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. Interesting that you can't go search for forest with that one. Everything but
It's
forest.
assuming you have
Uh,
one.
is assuming you have one. Explosive Vegetation for 4, so it's a little bit pricier, but you get to search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So you get both of them onto the battlefield, so it's well worth that 4 mana.
Yeah. And Explore is another card. Explore and Cultivate are 2 standard green searching cards. We love these ones. Explore is for 2 mana. You may play an additional land this turn and you get to draw a card. So that is really, really good. And then we have Cultivate as well, which is the 2 in a green that lets you search for up to 2 basics and reveal them and put 1 in the battlefield, 1 in your hand. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely staples.
And then we have some good dudes that also give us some mana.
Mm-hmm.
So Solemn Simulacrum for 4. When it enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. But it also has card draw. When he dies, you get to go draw a card. So a lot of good synergy between card draw and ramp in this deck.
Mm-hmm. And this next card is a card that one of my little friends really likes quite a bit, Zaxara the Exemplary. It's for 1, a black, a green, and a blue. It's one of these multicolored crazy cards, but it's a 2/3 Death Toucher. So yeah, it's really nice. And you can tap it and add 2 mana of any one color. Handy. And whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, you get to create a 0/0 green Hydra token with X/1/1 counters on it. So that could get to be quite good for you.
Not a lot of X mana cost in this deck. Certainly not
Maybe
enough to
something
make
you want to
Zexera
do.
worth it for that ability, but definitely the 2 mana is
Yeah.
great. Faeburrow Elder for 3, this is also a multicolored card. It has Vigilance, and it enters the battlefield. It gets 1/1 counter for each color among permanents you control. So if he's not the first one out on the battle, if he's the first one out on the battlefield, then it's only 2, because you can count himself. But of course, it's potentially 5, and then you can tap him for each color among permanents you control for 1 mana of that color. So that's an ongoing, as you get more colors out, he can tap for all kinds of colors. It's great.
Yeah. Coiling Oracle, it's for a green and a blue, a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, you get to put it onto the battlefield. It doesn't say tapped. Otherwise, put that card in your hand. So that's a good card draw, too.
And we get into some of our new ones. So Falagi Wayfinder for 2 and a green, which is very disconcerting to see when you see a gold border, because it should be green when you see that. But it says in its little text in its abilities is that it's all colors. This ability doesn't affect its color identity, so it's still only a green card for commander color identity purposes, but for this deck it's also all colors, so it counts as a multicolored card. Multicolored spells you cast have Convoke, which means you can tap your creatures to pay for 1 colorless mana for that creature's cost. So that will make your things cost a little bit less, which is why it's ramp.
The difference with Convoke is that it can tap for that color that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I always forget that. So yeah, if you tap a white one, it will tap for white.
It can be white mana. Yeah. Which is nice.
And if it's multicolored or multiple colors, you get to pick which color it is.
Yeah, totally. Obsidian Obelisk, it's for 2, a little artifact that says it enters tapped and it gets to be a colorless, or you can add 1 mana of any color and spend that mana only to cast a multicolored spell, which, as you know, there's a lot. So that'll be handy in this deck.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing this deck has a lot of, which is fantastic, we love it. Our next section is removal. So our formula calls for 15. This deck has 17, so we're right on par and a little bit over, which is great. Sylvan Reclamation is for 5. It's an instant, and you get to this is why there were so many instant sorceries, by the way. Exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. This one also has basic land cycling, so if you need card draw instead of removal, you can use it for that instead, which is great.
And then this cool art on Path to Exile. It is this the new art for this? I don't know. No, okay.
It's not. It's
too bad.
It's boring art for this.
It's boring art for this one. Yeah. Too bad. Path to Exile. It's got lots of different kinds of art. Go check them out. This one is an instant that you exile a target creature. Their big thing, whatever. Its controller may search their library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tap. So you help them out a little when you get rid of their big thing.
We have 3 charms in this deck. Woo-hoo. We have a Sultai, Abzan, and Naya charm. Of course, when you have all colors, you can use the charms quite well. Yeah. So the charms are really nice because they have versatility. They have lots of different things you can do with them. So Sultai charm, you can destroy target multicolored creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So it could be in card draw or removal. You're probably going to use these for removal though. Abzan charm has exile target creature with power 3 or greater, or you can draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or you can put some 1/1 counters on 2 target creatures. Naya charm, again, 3 damage to target creature, return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand, so you can maybe get some graveyard recursion if they've killed something of yours. And then tap all creatures target player controls is another great way to remove them from combat or whatever. So all instants, all versatile. We love the charms.
And everybody loves to hate the card called Terminate.
You're a poet and you know it.
This one, of course, is destroy target creature and it can't be regenerated. Instant speed for 2. Black and red. Goodbye.
See
you later.
Echoing Truths for 2 is an instant. You can return target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent to its owner's hand. So in Commander, you don't typically have things that are the same name on the battlefield unless you're dealing with tokens. So this is going to help you with those people that you're playing tokens against. Or if you're playing against Legends Legacy, they always throw a couple cards that will kind of help you with the deck, that the other deck, because that has
Right.
some copying of Legend Rule doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
that will help you kind of get rid of those things with the same name. So think about that. You know, if someone has elf warriors on the battlefield, they're probably going to have a lot of them. That's probably what you're going to want to name.
But name is the name of the card, though, right? Not the card type.
Yeah,
Would have to
elf
be
warrior. The
like
name
it
is
would have
still
to
elf
actually have the
warrior.
name. No,
Yeah.
that's the type. The name is the thing at the top, so it would be the creature. Would it not? Like
Which would be your elf
Jaya
warrior
Ballard.
token. Yeah, but elf warrior tokens are
Oh,
that's
I
the
see.
name.
Sorry if you said tokens. Yes, sorry. Elf Warrior
Yeah.
token. Yes, that all has the same name. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I was talking about token decks.
Okay, sorry. My brain. It's not working very well today. Then we have Beast Within for 2 and a green. It's an instant that lets you turn their big baddie into just a little 3/3 green beast. Here you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's
Leslie
always a
does
good
that all the
one.
time. Leslie loves
Well, you're
that card.
giving them gifts, right?
Yep.
Uh, time wipe. I always think of the time warp when it let's do the
The
time
time
wipe
warp.
again.
Yeah.
So this one's for two white and a blue. So this one, when we get to our tweaks, will nullify what you might be able to use as your companion. So you'll have to take this one out if you want to use what we want to tweak with. But it's a sorcery. Return a creature you control to its owner's hand and then destroy all the other creatures. So it's a nice little board wipe. Nothing wrong with that.
And there's Radiant Flames for 2 and a red. It is a lovely sorcery that says Converge, which says Radiant Flames deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Radiant Flames.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a possible of 3 because it's for 2 and a red. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And Merciless Eviction is 4 and a white and a black. And you can choose one. You can either exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all planeswalkers. Again, we love options. And the nice
Mm-hmm.
thing is it's exile. So it gets around the whole indestructible thing if someone's
Yes.
playing with those indestructible gods.
Yeah. Then we have Lavalanche. It's for X and a black, red, and green. It is the lovely deals X damage to target player or planeswalker, and each creature that player or that planeswalker's controller controls. Blech. That's a little bit of a mouthful there.
It
Lots of
is.
damage everywhere.
And here's another board wipe, except for one Dune Blast. For 4, a white, a black, and a green. Choose up to one target creature, destroy the rest.
Not very nice. We have a cute little turtle shaman for 1, a black, a green, and a blue. The Archelos
Mm-hmm.
Lagoon Mystic. As long as he is tapped, other permanents enter the battlefield tapped. And as long as he is untapped, other permanents enter the battlefield untapped. Little 2/4. So you're going to try to slow them down. Life is not a race.
I love it because I was reading the flavor text too. I was like, if she doesn't mention it, I'm gonna. Tiller, we get along so well.
Oh
No
my
wonder we're
gosh.
besties. Tiller Engine for 2 is a 1/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, tapped and under your control, choose one. Untap that land or tap target non-land permanent and opponent
Hmm.
controls. So we put this in removal because likely, I mean, it's nice to untap a land, and if you have something to do with that land, that's great, but it's probably a better idea to tap a non-land permanent and opponent controls. So you can kind of either get by it or perhaps, I don't know, if you find out some way to play a land that's not on your turn or something, you can take something out of combat. I don't know. But tapping their creatures is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Iridian Maelstrom. Anyway, it's all the colors, the Wooburg thing, and it is a sorcery that says destroy each creature that isn't all colors. So
Mm-hmm.
everything except your little pretty ones that you have, like this one.
Yeah, and this one is new to the set, so is the Tiller Engine.
Nice.
And this one too, Mana Cannons is new to the set for 3. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, Mana Cannons deals X damage to any target where X is the number of colors that spell is. So if you cast a 5-color card, it's going to do 5 damage to any target, which means you can target people, planeswalkers, or creatures. So you can use it as creature removal or people removal.
Nice. Then we're on to our card draw and tutors section. So this one, the formula calls for 13. The deck has 7. Some of our mana rocks have some card draw there, so they would be included in there too. So I guess it just depends which ones you take out and which ones you leave in. But the first one we have is Painful Truths. It is a 2 and a black sorcery that says Converge as well. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So that Converge mechanic again on that one.
Awesome. And Xeris, the Writhing Storm, is flying 3/5. So he's getting up there into high impact just by himself. But whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one, they draw each turn on their draw step. You get to create a 1/1 green snake creature token, which is fantastic. But the second part of this, when this creature deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So not only are you drawing that many cards, which is potentially 3 at a time, unless you've buffed him up and made him bigger, but you're also doing a little bit of like friend creating by allowing that, hey, Shauna, can I hit you for 3? It'll allow you to draw 3 cards. Shauna might be more than happy to take 3 damage to draw 3 cards. That seems like a good deal to me.
Yes, but then you get 3 snakes.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So I may not take that deal.
I never tell people those things when
I know.
give them a deal.
Called read the card because Leslie's trying to fool you.
Not fool.
Then we have the Glintai Nephilim, which is a weird little Nephilim type creature for a blue, black, red, and green. So just missing the white. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw that many cards. The 2/2. So there you go. You can pay 1 and discard a card, and he gets +1 until end of turn. Oh, there's that as well. Cool.
Yeah. And Maelstrom Nexus is a really great card in this. It's going to allow you to dig through your deck, which is perfect kind of card draw tutoring type thing. For Wooburg, you get an enchantment, and the first spell you cast each turn has Cascade. So what does Cascade mean? Well, as it says on the card, whenever you cast your first spell, you get to exile cards from the top of your library until you find one that has a lower mana cost, and then you can put that exiled card, you get to play it without paying its mana cost. So it's just like getting you play a spell, you get a free spell. And then those cards that you exiled, they don't go away. You just get to put them on the bottom of your library until the next time you cast. So you just keep ramping up and playing things for free, which is great.
Very cool. Then we have one of my favorite characters in Magic lore, Selvala, Explorer Return. This is a 1 green and a white 2/4 that has Parlay. Parlay is you can tap her and each player reveals the top card of their library. For each non-land card revealed this way, add a green mana and you gain 1 life. Then each player draws a card. How handy.
Mm-hmm.
Giving them information.
It also kind of has mana and ramp as well as card draw, but probably you'll use it for the card draw more. Atla, I have a deck that she is my commander and I love her to pieces. So she has you can pay 2, tap her to create an egg creature with defender. But when those eggs die, you get to reveal cards from the top of your library, just like the Cascade we were talking about a little bit earlier. And you get to put the first creature card you come across onto the battlefield for
for free. It's
free.
ridiculous, folks. It's
And in
ridiculous.
this deck, there is, of course, a lot of 5, 6, 7. We talked about how many cards are 5 and 6 plus mana cost. So if you get them for free instead, Atla will help you kind of dig through your deck. She'll be great.
She keeps people from swinging at you, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that egg to die.
No one wants the eggs to hatch.
No. Baleful Strix. It is a black and a blue 1/1 flying death touch bird that looks really cool. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So that's really handy.
It'll also
I
keep
like
people
that
from
card.
attacking you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flying
Don't touch
people.
me. Don't touch me.
All right, now we're into the fun,
Oops.
high impact category. Category. The formula calls for 12, and this deck has, in our recollection, 12. So we're right on par here. The first one we'll talk about is Path to the World Tree for 2. Only 2. It is an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, which is definitely a mana ramp thing. However, we put it in high impact because it also has this Wooburg 2 ability in it, which kind of puts it up there in a little bit more important than ramp. So you can sacrifice Path to the World Tree, gain 2 life, draw 2 cards, target opponent loses 2 life. Path to the World Tree does 2 damage to up to 1 target creature, and you create a 2/2 green bear creature token. So when you need it, all of those things are going to happen just by sacrificing it, which is great.
Awesome. Maelstrom Archangel. It is the Wooburg colors as well. 5/5 angel, obviously flying. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost.
That's going to be ridiculous.
Oh, so bad.
Oh, another
And it's
great
not
high
legendary.
impact card that may help you win
Jeez.
this game is Reyna, Angel of Rebirth, for 2 red, green, white. She's flying. Other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0, which is pretty much everything. And whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, you get to return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So they don't actually go to the graveyard, they just keep coming back to your hand.
Jeez. That's disgusting. All right. Then we have a little mutating Nethroi Apex of Death for 2, a white, a black, and a green. A cat nightmare beast. A 5/5 that has death touch and lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Really great graveyard recursion. But to pay for the mutate cost, it's a 4 and then the green or white hybrid mana and the black and the green. And that's where you can pay that and attach it to one of your other creatures. And then both that, yeah, it becomes part of the other creature. So that creature stuff happens as well as this one with the mutating stuff going on.
Yeah, so if you put it on the last angel that we talked to you about,
Yeah.
now your Reyna would be Death Touch, Flying, Lifelink. But if you
Yeah.
cast this on the battlefield without mutating it, then that whenever it mutates doesn't happen.
No.
So you want to make sure that you use this one for its mutate cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's 2 mutate cards in this deck. This is the other one, Aluna, the Apex of Wishes, which is 2, a green, a blue, and a red. Flying Trample, whenever this creature mutates, exile a card from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. So sometimes it's better to cast it than to just get it on the battlefield. But you get the choice, and its mutate cost does cost 6 instead. So it is 1 more, and it does have 2 blue in it. So it's a little bit harder to cast for its mutate. But again, I would recommend mutating this one. However, giving something flying that didn't have flying is also a good thing.
Yeah. And then we have the Hero of Precinct 1. This is a perfect fit for this multicolored deck. It is a 2/2. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So I have played this quite a bit with a multicolored deck, and it does a lot of work for you.
Yeah. We actually think when we get to our tweaks, we'll talk about that more, that's one of the key strategies that you could really ramp up in this deck.
Yeah.
So Fusion Elemental, speaking of just 5-color good stuff. 5 for Wooburg, you get an 8/8. So for 5 mana, you get an 8/8. And if you mutate onto this guy, now he's flying and trample.
Yeah, that's insane. Insane. Then we have Okachi, Vengeful Kami. It's for the Wooburg +1 extra, 6/6 dragon spirit that has flying and trample. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if that player attacked you during his or her last turn, exile target non-land permanent that player controls. So you hit me, I hit you really bad, basically.
Yeah. So don't hit me.
Leave me alone.
Chromanticore, again, Wooburg, for a 4/4 that has flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, lifelink. However, you could bestow this onto another creature, which basically, instead of casting it as a creature, it would be an enchantment. And so if you decided to put it as an enchantment aura onto something, then that creature would get +4/+4, as well as flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, and lifelink. So it's kind of like mutate. Bestow is kind of like mutate,
kinda. Yeah.
the way it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have the other commander that was suggested, a 2/2 for the 2, the green and the white, human druid. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you get to scry one. And if that spell was all colored, you can create a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance. And then this is one that you can tap 5 colorless to make the 5 Wooburg. So really helps you get to those big creatures if you need it.
Yeah, mana fixing. And if you didn't want a one-headed Hellkite, now we got a two-headed Hellkite. For Wooburg and 1, it has flying, menace, and haste. And whenever it attacks, you get to draw 2 cards.
Oof.
So it's a 5/5 that gives you 2 cards and has all of those awesome things.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So some of these could have been in, but they're so it could have been in our draw section, but they're such good cards. They're what change the game type thing.
Exactly.
Unite the Coalition for 2 and the Wooburg. It's you get to choose 5 of these, and you can choose the same one more than once if you want to. We've got target permanent phases out. That means it kind of disappears for a turn, so it can't be affected by you or your opponents. So you can hide.
So it does a board wipe.
Exactly. Target player draws a card. Could be you, could be opponents, whatever you want to do. Exile target player's graveyard. Definitely want to get rid of their graveyards. Unite the Coalition deals 2 damage to any target. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. So yet another one of these ones with lots of things to choose from.
And choose 5 is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, those last 3 are new cards for this set that just started just for this commander.
Nice.
And then our last section before we get on to our tweaks is other cards on theme. These will be other win conditions. There might be specialty cards as well as cards that support your deck. This is the very first commander deck that we've analyzed that has only had 4 in it. So the formula calls for 10. This deck only has 4 left that don't fit into some of those other categories, mainly because of all of the ramp and removal.
Yeah.
So we have Trans Guild Courier. It is all colors, and it is a 3/3. So just a nice little support card.
Yeah. Then we have Surak Dragonclaw, which is for 2, a green, a blue, and a red, a little 6/6 flash. And it can't be countered. And creature spells you control can't be countered. Other creatures you control have trample. So it's just really going to help you with getting your creatures out there and definitely having them do some damage.
It's actually, I didn't realize it was a 6/6. It's probably pretty high impact.
It's pretty high
probably
impact.
Could go back up into the other one. Same with the Primeval Spawn, but I wasn't sure. We can talk about that in a second. We have Knight of New Alara for 2 and green and a white. Each other multicolor creature you control gets +1/+1 for each of its colors.
Oh my goodness.
So if it's 5 color, then it gets +1 or gets +5/+5.
Sheesh.
So it's great.
That's that nice could be high impact card. Too.
Could be.
Anything can in the right situation.
Yeah.
Then we have Primeval Spawn for 5 and the 5 Wooburg. So it does cost a lot of 10/10. If it would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast or no mana was spent to cast it, exile it instead. So you can't do... Well, let's just read the card, Shauna. Read the card. Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. Well, no. Trample on a 10/10. When it leaves the battlefield, exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast any number of spells with total mana value 10 or less from among them without paying their mana cost. So you want to have to pay for this card. You don't want to play it for free because otherwise it's going to disappear on you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it dies, because they're going to need to kill this, you get to go and get a whole bunch of good cards out of your deck.
Or at least two, because like
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
5-color cards, and there's nothing wrong with getting two
Oh my
5-color
gosh.
cards either. The
Yeah.
reason I put this one in on theme is because what they're selling you with this card, and I guess is something that you should think about in general, is a dream. And we hear that theme about if this would only happen, you guys would be
Yeah.
terrified.
Yes,
Uh,
we would.
so because of the cascade in this deck and the playing cards for free in this deck, this may hit the battlefield and then just be exiled right away instead, and then you're kind of hooped. Um, and if they exile it or just put like prison realm or something on it, then it's never going to leave the like, you know, they just like stop it from attacking. So
Yeah.
then it never going to leave the battlefield. So there are ways for people to get around this, and so it's kind of like selling you the dream, but will the dream happen, which is why it's other cards. um
Yes.
yeah, so the next category, of course, is land. We won't break down all the land. There are some great land in this deck because it is a multicolored
Yeah.
5-color deck. They have a lot of different types of dual lands in it. So it might be worth picking up just to get, you know, a nice set of 39 land that you can use in other decks as well. Feel free to like switch your land up and switch your cards around in decks. Like, don't feel because you have 5 decks that you want cultivate in, you have to have 5 cultivates. Um, but yeah, I know you guys have all been waiting for the tweaks, so we're gonna
Yeah.
get started with those. Shauna, why
Okay.
don't you start us off?
So one of the things we were thinking about was the whole multicolored benefit thing. So when you cast a multicolored spell, such and such happens. So we were
Mm-hmm.
looking for some of those sorts of things that would really help us. The first tweak we have here is the widespread thieving. It is a enchantment from New Capenna, 2 and red, that has hideaway 5. So that means when you play it, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library and just tuck that one of them underneath this card. Hidden from everybody except you. And whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you can create a treasure token. So then you're going to get lots of treasures, which is going to help with the whole multicolored thing. So then you can pay the Wooburg. And if you do, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So, yeah, that might really help you get an extra card out for a turn, which is really great.
And in this deck, it could be cheaper to play Wooburg for that card. Because some of
Yeah.
it, like that, if you think of that card that's Wooburg in 10,
Yeah.
or Wooburg in 5, or Wooburg in 2, or something like that, now you're just paying it for Wooburg. So
Yeah.
of course, when we say that these are tweaks, we wouldn't suggest that you take all of these cards and put them in this deck. They're just
Yeah.
options for you
Some
if you want to
ideas.
go a certain way. So General Pharaoh's Rockerick for 1 and a red and a white. He is hexproof from monocolored, and whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you get to create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact token. So, hey, if you have Hero of the Precinct one and this one out, you're just
Yeah.
creating all kinds of tokens.
Jeez. It's kind of funny. I'm just noticing this with the name Ferros Rockerick. So Ferris, I mean. So ferrous is like
Golems, yeah, yeah.
ferrous oxide and
Rocks,
stuff in
yeah.
chemistry, rocks, and then it's Rockerick. Like wizards. You're so silly. You're funny.
Words.
Golem artifacts. Jeez. Come on. Goofy. Rampaging Monument for 4. It's a trample and it enters the battlefield with 3+1 counters on it. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you get to put a 1/1 counter on this guy. So he can grow pretty quickly in this deck. And he
Mm-hmm.
has trample by default. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and if you mutate onto him, then he'll have flying, right? So
Right. Yeah. And that, yeah. Ooh,
So he works with some of the other cards already in this
amazing.
deck. And then
Yep.
Tome of the Guild pack is also another, whenever you cast a multicolored spell, draw a card and add 1 mana of any
Yeah.
color. So we already talked about there's a lot of mana ramp in here and card draw, there's actually quite a bit, but this fits better with the multicolored theme as it's going to trigger every time you cast a spell. So
Mm.
might be better than some of the other stuff.
Yeah. One thing that Leslie noticed right away was you could do Gigantha, the Wellspring, as a companion on this deck. So get an extra card there that you can get to easily for a green and red hybrid elemental elk. That's a 5/5, and so then it's no card in your starting deck has more than one of the same symbol in its cost. So that's where she said the what is it, time wipe. You couldn't have it in this deck if you had this one as your companion, but that's the only card that we talked about that. No, it's not. There's a couple others.
Well, I don't know. We'd have to look because both of the mutate cards had either 2 blue or 2 black in them.
Right.
So technically those are alternate mana costs, not mana costs, not the actual mana cost for the deck. So I would have to look into that. But I think even so, if you didn't use it as your companion, let's say you didn't want to take those cards out and you love your time wipe or whatever, you could easily put this in just as a card.
Yeah, true. And you can tap it for the Wooburg. So yeah.
It's a 5/5 mana dork. And then Joda the Unified is also a Wooburg card for 5/5. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control, which is more legendary than Wooburg colors, but there's a lot of legendary creatures in this deck, and whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So essentially it has Cascade on it. You put the rest at the bottom of your library. So
very cool. Then we have All Suns Dawn. It is a 4 and a green. For each color, return up to 1 target card of that color from your graveyard to your hand. And then you have to exile this card. You can't do it again, but man, you could go and get 1 of each color. Whew, that could potentially bring back a lot of cards for 5.
Yeah, and remember, multicolor cards are any color. So, any color within there. So if they're a Celestia card, it could work for your green or your white.
Definitely.
Rogue's Gallery does the same for 3. For each color, return up to 1 target creature card of that color from your graveyard to your hand. So, again, just getting your stuff back after people get rid of it is good.
Cheaper. Then we have a Chamber Sentry. It is a construct that it enters the battlefield with 1/1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it, hopefully the 5. And you can pay X and tap it and remove X 1/1 counters from it, and it deals X damage to any target. And you can pay the Wooburg and return it from your graveyard to your hand. So do it over and over again. Why not?
Yeah, it's just like constant removal too if you have the mana for it. So Conqueror's Flail for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. And then as long as Conqueror's Flail is attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn.
Haha.
Which is the best part of that.
Yes, exactly. Courier's Briefcase. I've seen this used quite a bit. It is for 1 and a green, 1 and a green. And when it enters the battlefield, you make a little human citizen. And you can sacrifice and add 1 mana of any color, or you can pay the Wooburg and sacrifice it and draw 3 cards. So it's a great little helping you get some cards, helping you get some mana. Depends what you need.
Yeah, it's only 2, so it might be a good thing to put in there. So again, some of the next tweaks, we're getting into our mana tweaks. We feel that these ones are going to be better than some of the mana generators and draw that are actually in the deck. So you can kind of decide for yourself on that. But this one is coming out with Dominaria United Timeless Lotus for 5. It enters the battlefield tapped, but then you can just, it's an artifact, it taps for Wooburg. And it's not in the deck, so it should be.
Yeah. And if you have a Kaleido Stone for 2, when it comes into play, you draw a card, and you can pay 5 and sacrifice it and add the Wooburg. So another really great 2-in-1 kind of card. So
Chromatic Orrery for 7. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color, so it just automatically turns your mana into that color, that fixing that you need. You can use it for 5 colorless, or you can pay 5 and draw a card for each color among permanents you control.
So good.
So
and then we couldn't remember the name of this card, but Leslie finally found it. Chromatic Lantern for 3. It makes your lands be any color. We were like, what is
And
the name of that
again,
card?
this one's not in this deck, and it's like
Yeah,
such an old common
yeah.
commander card. I'm surprised that they didn't put it in the deck, but it
That
should
would
be in
probably
this
be too
deck.
good.
Yeah,
It's
you need to
it's
find it if you're gonna
yeah.
play this
You
deck.
need it for this deck.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's it for this time. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for watching. We are available on YouTube, as you see, and Twitch. You can join us on Wednesday nights for a regular Commander game for most Wednesdays. Also, feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'd love to hear how you would tweak this deck or any other decks that might be on our channel. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it.
bye,
Bye.
guys.